Hello dosto, my name is Deepak and I'm a tax code advisor. Today I'm going to tell a story of a client of mine who saw a huge gain in 2024. His portfolio was up almost 400%. I was so shocked to see it. I mean, 400%. And most of us who were invested in, S&P 500 or maybe in a total market index or some other ETF, maybe even value stocks or large cap or something like that. Maybe you guys saw 40% gain last year. And maybe if you are invested in Mag 7, maybe you saw 80% gain. But 300, 400% portfolio gain, I mean, that is impressive. I got to give that to this guy. So I had an interesting conversation with him. So I'm going to share what I learned from him and what was his mindset. How did he decide to go that route? What did I personally think about it? What do I find wrong with it? How, would I be able to repeat what he did again? Let's just say if time were to go back, would I make a decision a little bit differently? Would I go back the way he invested? So I'm going to share all of that information with you today. So I think there will be some awesome learning lessons for all of us. All right. But before I begin, let me remind everyone, my name is Deepak. I'm a tax code advisor. I'm not an investment advisor. I'm not here to tell you what to buy, what to sell. I don't want you to join some group. I don't want you to join some training program. I don't need you to pay me something. None of that crap. I just share what I learned from my clients. People come to me to solve their tax problems. When people say, hey, I made a great amount of money in NVIDIA, my obvious question to them is, how did you decide to invest in NVIDIA? What was your thought process? Because if we can learn how smart investors think, I think we can recreate their legacy. All right. It's not as easy as it sounds. Over the years, I'm going to continue to share those stories with you. And I think we can learn from these stories. All right. So, number one thing I learned from this gentleman was that he only had 4 stocks in his portfolio. 4. That's right. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. Nothing else. I'm like, 4? Isn't like a standard advice from these big financial pundits is to have a diversified portfolio? And shouldn't you have a portfolio that, when one goes up, other one goes down, you stay kind of balance, so you never have to worry about taking a big haircut or anything like that? Talking about haircut, I need to get haircut soon. So, but that's a different story. And if you want a haircut, if you have a hair salon, then definitely reach out to me. I can use your services. All right. But his answer surprised me. He said, Deepak, I already invest in ETFs. I already have a retirement fund. I invest in ETFs. I'm good there. I also own real estate. I also own businesses. But when it comes down to individual stocks, I bet on my highest conviction companies. That's it. I don't take chance with anything else because these are my highest convictions. Why should I settle for an average? Because if I want to get an average, why should I go into stocks at all? Shouldn't I just go with an ETF? And I was like, that's actually not a bad thing, right? If you're looking for just an average, he's right. Why not go there? And he said, look, when you have 20, 30 companies in your portfolio, that's what you're chasing. You're chasing an average. And if I want an average, why even waste my time? Why do I have to listen into 20, 30 earnings call? Why do I have to read their financial reports? It takes too much time. But 2 or 3 companies, I can do that, right? So that was my next surprise when I looked at his portfolio. It was not like 25, 25, 25, 25. Like, he was not evenly divided into those 4 companies. He had 60% of his investment in Tesla. He had, I think, 30% in Palantir, and other 2 were like something else, but they were like so small that I didn't really even pay too much attention to it. So almost 90% of the portfolio was just in these 2 companies altogether, Tesla and Palantir. So, but I get his point. He was saying, look, if I only need to pay attention to 2 companies, I can do that. I can listen into every single earnings call. I can listen into everything those 2 companies are doing. I can just be laser focused on those 2 companies only. And that's what I was doing in 2024. So I thought, I mean, I study companies myself. I mean, we talk about it on our discussion groups. We discuss those. When clients come to me and they share their portfolios and they tell me their stories, I hear a lot of reasoning behind that as well. So So I know thing or two about these companies. So I asked him, well, tell me what story was cooking in your head in 2024 for Tesla. So the consultation, by the way, was last year. So uh, in 2024, just in case. So December 2024. Right now, I think it's January 7th. So about a week, maybe 2 weeks ago. He said, well, you're going to see how Tesla is going to deliver record numbers in 2024 in the fourth quarter. I'm like, how do you figure that? I mean, do you have some information? And he gave me some ideas. You go like, back in the days, we used to see a lot of companies, a lot of cars like waiting in the mall, and now we don't see that anymore. And you see that I think the fourth week of December, Tesla had stopped giving free financing. Like I think before that they were giving 0% financing if you have good credit, and I think by the end of the year, by the last week of December, they stopped doing that. So if you had a great credit, I think the financing earlier was 0%. If you had an average credit, I think it was, I want to say, 8%, and then it was like a bad credit was like 10 or 12%, something like that. And the last week of December they stopped doing that. So his thought process was that, well, they stopped giving financing because they have met their record, they have met their numbers, and now they don't need to give those incentives. That was his thought process behind that. I'm like, okay, what else? He says, well, second thing is they're coming up with this new car that's going to be only $30,000 in 2025. It's going to be available in February or March. They're going to have new Model Y that's going to drive a lot of demand for it. They're going to have an FSD that's going to have a lot of demand. Tesla is going to launch a robot taxi that's going to generate a lot of revenue around that as well. And let's see. I think those were the major points he was making. He was like big on FSD and robotaxi. That was his thing. I think he said that Elon Musk have promised that he's going to deliver that this year. All right. So that was the story cooking in his head in 2024. And now in 2025, that story, whether that story was right or not, the stock price did very well. I think the stock was at 140. Now it's sitting a little over 400. So it just did awesome. I'm not going to talk too much about Palantir because that's a whole different topic altogether. Let's just stick with Tesla for today, just so we don't make this video too longer. All right. So I want to talk about the reality. So this was the fiction. This was the stuff that he think is going to happen. But the question is, what actually happened? Because when you look at the numbers, you need to see how far the stock price is from where the numbers are today. Maybe you're comfortable with it being overpriced by 10%. Maybe you're comfortable with 20%, 30%, 40%, 100%. Well, what is your number, right? Different people have different numbers. Some people are still buying the stock at 400 some dollars because they are very comfortable with, the growth stock has already seen. And that's why it's trading at that value. All right. So what are the facts? Fact number one, everybody thought that Tesla is going to do over $500,000, 500,000 cars in the fourth quarter. I think 510 or something like that. It ended at 495,000 cars in Q4. This is first year in 2024. Actually, they have a sales decline overall. Sales decline, not increase. He thought it's going to increase, but it actually declined. And in spite of this decline, the stock is up. So sometimes fundamentals don't make any sense. Let's talk about China. China is a big market for Tesla. I mean, what do you think? Is Tesla winning in China or not? I think most of us are familiar with BYD. Most of us are familiar with how Tesla is losing market share left and right in China. Okay, we all heard what Trump has talked about EV from China. So he has promised that he's going to even increase tariffs and he's going to build more pressure on China. Would that have an impact on Tesla in China? Potentially. Yes, we only hear what we want to hear, but there is a possibility that China can take some sort of decision on Tesla as well. So there's a problem. Then there are new EVs coming out in market. I mean, take a look in Europe. Western countries, they have a lot of new cars coming out. Tesla is not the only story. Obviously, they're not coming in the US just yet, but they're there. So Tesla is losing market share in Asia. Tesla is losing battle in Europe right now. And, in the United States, they're somewhat protected. But their margins are not there, right? Their margins has been declining over every single quarter. So margins are not getting any better. Talk about FSD. He said the FSD going to be a big driver for revenue in 2025. I don't see how. Right? We still have an FSD. Obviously, it's not full FSD, but how many people are really paying for it? How many FSDs Tesla being able to sell? Why is it not helping them with their margins? Why are their revenues not coming from that segment? Because I don't think the regular car owners are going to be spending that much money on FSD. And I think Tesla already knows that. Elon Musk knows that. That's why they're so focused on a robotaxi. And I think that's where a lot of valuation is coming from. So if you talk about a robotaxi, then let me ask you this. Does Tesla have a robotaxi? Do you see any? No. They are thinking about launching one in 2025. Okay. Waymo launched robotaxi a long time ago. I mean, do you see Google stock flying high because they have Waymo? No, obviously not, right? So why do I think that Tesla stock will fly high just because they have robotaxi? I don't see how those two things kind of work together. We already have one company that I can look at and compare with. Um, can Tesla surprise? Of course they can, but I'm just saying I already have another example. That's all I know, so I can only compare it with that other example. Okay. Number two, what about the regulatory approvals? I mean, this country is full of regulations. So when Trump comes back and says, well, I'm going to reduce the regulations. So what are you going to do? You're going to get rid of all the regulations first year in his office? Probably not. Yes. Will he loosen a bit up? Sure. He can get rid of all the regulations. I don't see how he's going to change this, the whole regulatory framework this time around. And if that was the case, why didn't he do it the last time? Uh, he's going to make some changes, but it's not going to be like the world is not going to be turned upside down just because Trump is in office. I don't see. At least it's not going to happen that fast. Okay. Then what about the hardware and software? Are we there yet, or does this technology needs to go a little bit more better before we will actually see the real results? Okay. Um, Once Tesla launches a robo taxi, they're going to have to wait 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years. I don't know how long. Would there be an accident? Would there be a major problem that might happen because of Tesla? And Tesla would have to learn from it. I think people are just way over optimistic about the results of this FSD technology. It's there. One day we're going to get there. I just don't know if we are almost there yet. Okay. Number two, even if the technology is there, will we have mass adoption? Would would Uber disappear and everybody start taking Tesla? Would that happen? I don't see that happening again in next year or two. Maybe it takes 5 years, maybe it takes 10 years. I don't know. Okay. So that has, all I'm saying is that I think we are already, the valuation of company is already in future. We're just not there yet. He also talked about that new car, right? I think they have, was it Model 2, Model Q? I don't know what they call it. They keep changing the names on it. But the idea is it's supposed to be a smaller car. It's a car that's going to be even smaller than Model 3. So I have a Model Y. It's a fairly small car. I drive it. I love it. It's awesome. No problem there. Okay. But it's a small car. I don't like it. I can barely put my stuff in there, especially when I'm with the kids. It's just not comfortable for me at all. So I can imagine Model 3 is even smaller. And this new car, Model, whatever they want to call it, Model 2 or Model Q, it's going to be even smaller. And they're talking about the car is going to be roughly about 30,000. And then obviously after the federal tax credit, which is $7,500, Trump has talked about getting rid of that credit. So if he gets rid of that, now the car is almost 38,000. Okay. And we don't know if that's, he's already including the gas savings. He normally like to put that, when you go on tesla.com and you look at the pricing, it kind of shows you the gas savings as part of it. So I don't know if that 30,000 figure, including that or excluding that, but for time being, let's exclude it altogether. But let's just say it's a $38,000 car. Okay. You can buy Model Y for 42. So 38 to 42. What are we talking about? $4,000 difference? And the car is what, almost 20-30% smaller than Model Y. So I don't know. I'm not super optimistic about that either. Would people like it? Would it have mass adoption? Those are the questions we will see that answered next year once they launch it. Okay. Can this help them in other markets? I don't think so. Some of the EVs that I have seen in Europe are way cheaper than what Tesla is even talking about. So I don't think that would happen. Okay, now there is something good going on with Tesla, and I talked about it a couple of times on our discussion group, which is the energy division. I think that's where they're winning. I think they're up 100% year over year. They're talking about adding $10 billion in revenue in 2025 just out of that division. So that looks pretty good to me. But FSD and this Model 3, or not Model 3, Model 2 or Model Q, whatever they want to call it, if you're betting on those two things, and that's what this gentleman was, that was his thought process, I don't see how that can actually turn into reality, at least from the fundamentals point of view. Eventually fundamentals do need to catch up. If fundamentals don't catch up, then stock will crash. They always do, because at the end of the day, investors are impatient. They want to see some value. They want to see some earnings growth. They want to see some margins, and Tesla is not showing those. They're not showing the revenue growth. They're not showing the margins growth. They're not showing new markets being captured. None of that is actually happening. Everything right now is still a hype. Everything around Tesla is still that this can happen. And question I have is, if it can happen, okay, if it can happen, how long would it take? Because this gentleman thought it's going to happen in 2025. I, from based on the numbers that I see, I don't think it can happen in 2025. Maybe in future, but certainly not in 2025. But that did not stop him from taking such a big position in Tesla. Okay, I'm not sharing his story because he made some good money off Tesla. That's not the point. I'm sharing his story because look at all the facts that I have put in front of you, right? I'm talking about the reality of this new Tesla car. I'm talking about the reality of margins. I'm talking about the reality of FSD, the regulations problem, the learning curve, the adoption problem. All of these things take time. I'm sure one way or the other, he might have heard about all this stuff, or maybe he didn't. Maybe he just ignored it all. But if you knew all these, let's just say we go back 1 year in time, and you knew all these problems, and stock was trading at 140, which is roughly 20% valuation and 80% future growth, would you buy that stock again? Let's say if we had another opportunity to do it one more time, would I go back and buy it at 140? I think many of us will buy it because we have seen it, that stock at 400, just because of that reason. But at that point, that will just be a gamble, okay? And that brings me perhaps to the most important point. Most of the time, most of the time, we simply get lucky. It's not about the valuation. It's not about whether you're right or wrong. You simply get lucky. What would have happened if Trump would have lost the election? Do you think stock would be trading at 400? I guess we will never know, but we can only make a guess. I personally don't think so. Maybe the stock would trade at 180, maybe 200, certainly not 400. Just because one election has went in their favor. It could have been easily the other way around. If it was the other way around, his stock portfolio would not be up 300%. Maybe it would be up 40%, just like everybody else. Why? Because he had another winning company in there, Palantir. But imagine if he didn't have Palantir, maybe he had some other normal company. In that case, his portfolio might have even lost. So most of it is luck. But I did like a couple of lessons from him. Number one, he's right that if you had just a couple of companies in portfolio, you can pay more attention to them. You can definitely listen into those earning calls. You can definitely follow up on them. You can learn more about those companies. So I agree with him, but he didn't. All the logics he gave me did not align with the facts. Maybe the story is completely as. Maybe the story is that one day Elon Musk will get there, so I'm going to support him no matter what. Whether it takes him 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, I don't care. I'm just going to be there for him. If you would have answered that, I would have bought that. Many great companies go up and down. You could have seen that with Apple, you could have seen that with Amazon, you could have seen that with Google, you could have seen that with any other successful company. They go up, sometimes they're down, up, down, and if you stick around over the long term, you're just fine. It works out well in your favor. But that was not his answer. His answer was short term. He was so focused on all the things that he talked about, and like I said, when I looked at all the fundamentals, they don't align with what he was saying. I think he just got lucky in this case. So it does happen, and why I'm saying that, because next time your friend tells you something, when your friend tells you about some hot stock, or maybe you go to a YouTuber who says, "See, I told you so. I told you back in 2022 invest in Tesla. Back in this year invest. I told you so." Right? If they're so great, they're so awesome, they know about this technology, they know something that other people don't know. Guess what? So many investment companies will grab them and pay them billions of dollars. How much would Warren Buffett would pay them? How much Chase would pay them, or any other bank that you might love? These people are extremely valuable if they are able to pick the right companies. When markets are good, when everybody's happy, it's easy to say that, look, I said so, it worked out very well. It could have been exactly the other way. It's not in their hand. Nothing fundamentally has changed with Tesla just yet. It can happen, but what I'm saying is the story hasn't changed a whole lot from last year. It's the same story, except that now we have Trump in the office. Okay. Now, whenever something like that happens, it also creates opportunities in other companies. Some other companies, for example, we were talking about Amazon the other day. I was looking at the Amazon. I'm like, man, this company is still trading almost 25-30% discount compared to its historical values. And people loved Amazon. Before that, people loved Apple. Do you remember a couple of years ago, or maybe not a couple, maybe 3-4 years ago, everybody was Apple. Then it was Microsoft. Then it was Nvidia. Stories keep changing every few months. Okay, so I just wanted to share that story with you. Hopefully you get some learning lessons out of it. Maybe I didn't catch on to something, maybe I missed something. So if I missed something that you go like, hey Deepak, this is a critical point, that's why you should invest, or that's why you should have invested in Tesla. I'm willing to go back in time and hear your thoughts on that. Please do let me know, because the purpose of the call is just to learn, and not learn whether I want to invest or not, but to learn the mindset of people who take these kind of risky decisions. Why do they do it? Sometimes they win, sometimes they don't. But if I can have a better understanding, maybe I can share it with the rest of the people, and all of us can win. So thank you so much for spending your last 15-20 minutes with you. If you're anywhere in the country, you need help reduce your taxes, then I'm your guy. That's all I do. Tax advice. I help you file your taxes, prepare your taxes, and help you reduce your taxes. So if there's anything I can do to help you out with that, don't hesitate. Just go to taxcodeadvisors.com and reach out to me from there. So, and then please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your comments. Let me know why you agree or disagree with what I just said. If there's something I missed, I want to hear that from you. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.